Hi, everyone, and welcome to our conversation around culture. So, I'm joined today by Phil, Sue, and Dave from Investors in Community. My name is Lynette Ellison. I lead the marketing charge for IIC. We had this conversation in one of our meetings recently, and we all just felt that it was something we wanted to bring to the wider community. So, hence why we're here. So, Sue, Dave, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hello. I'm Sue Howarth, a director of Investors in Community and also co-founder and director of the Family Business Community.
Thank you.
Likewise, Dave Clarkson. So yeah, Director of Investors in Community and also representing Family Business Community as well.
Awesome. And Phil?
I'm Philip Webb. I'm Chief Executive of Investors in Community, but I also bring about 30 years worth of experience working with psychologists in change management through work with Albert Humphrey.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So, guys, should we kick off? What do we actually mean by culture? What is culture?
For me, simplistically, culture is a mindset and behaviors. Two words.
Cool.
Others want
Me,
to expand on that, but
Yeah,
that's
go for
where I
it.
sit with it.
Yeah.
yeah. For me, again, it is about the values and the beliefs and the behaviours of the people in the business, as well as and I would say it is the mindset
Mm.
and how that is then sort of communicated and drawn through all areas of the business.
And for you, Phil, what does it mean to you?
It's the cultural, it's like the meme inside the organization. It's how we do things around here. It's the attitudes, beliefs, whether right or wrong, and values of the collective teams within a company, often tried to dictate it to from the top, but ultimately collectively responded to by everybody in the team. The team defines the culture ultimately. It's the job of the chief executives and the executive board to try to corral that culture into a meaningful, productive output.
I think often people will say, yeah, we've got a culture and they've written it somewhere, and therefore they've defined the culture. But you've got to kind of, rather than just say it, you've got to do it. So it's a doing thing, culture, not a written piece.
So, how does that differ from strategy? Because that's what we were talking about, wasn't it? The culture eats strategy for breakfast. The quote by Peter Drucker.
Phil, I think you should start with this. You've got some good
Mm.
context there.
Mm.
Well, in all my experiences working with the psychology of change management, strategy is the laid out plans which you want to lay for you in terms of how the company is going to move forwards. It's envisioned markets, it's envisioned customer base, and how you're going to actually achieve what you do. Culture is the a bit like a softer side of the equation. It is the people side. The analogy, I suppose, is if you're in a sailing boat, those little sailing outrigger boats, the strategy is setting the course for how you get from one side of the lake to the other. The culture is the wind. You turn the sail to catch the wind. If you catch it right, you'll be propelled along at a great rate of knots. If you don't, you sit there and simply languish in a no movement position. Hence the word, you can have all the plans. In other words, the strategies in the world, but culture will
Yeah.
eat it for
Mm.
breakfast.
Mm.
I would add to that, and we were chatting in the meeting when we were speaking about this about a quote that both Dave and I had heard from an individual who was actually former military, but he always used to say, it used to concern him if people just said they had a strategy, because it often meant to him that they didn't have a plan. And for me, that really resonates in terms of sort of taking that forwards. And actually, it's not you can a lot of organisations can talk about it, but it's actually what's happening internally inside that organization, and how's that being rolled out, and sort of how do the people embrace it, and are they being made accountable for the behaviors around the culture.
Yeah, I think we've all been in the businesses and in very recent times as well, when people say, actually, that could fit into the strategy we're working on. But I know I can go back there 6 months later and they'll still be working on a strategy.
Mm.
Whereas others, more confident in saying, yeah, we've got a plan for that and we're delivering on it.
Mm.
It simplifies it. and it's more a doing action with a plan. A strategy is just so theory based.
So
So
many years ago, of course, we had this, not too many years ago, funnily enough, we had this thing called command control, which was the modus operandi of businesses. It's ex-military. It came out of the various military practices and into the 50s. Command control says, boss says do this, worker will do it, or get sacked. And of course, it's only about 5 decades ago, really, how times have changed. So now we're into what we call participative management. In other words, you've got to involve your people if you stand any chance of making anything happen. So it's all about inclusion. It's all about embracing the hearts and minds of the teams. The respect for the teams has gone up massively. They're no longer workers, they're team players. If you don't embrace that and harness it, you will not get anywhere. And of course, along with that comes the individual psychology of has to be right for me. And then we talk to the younger generations that won't join a business unless they extol the values and the virtues that they wish to become part of and associate with. So now the table's turned. It's no longer command control. It's actually participation. But I say you have to catch the wind of the teams and make sure that they come with you and they propel you. It's no longer an assumed thing that you can dictate a strategy and it will happen, because it won't.
And there lies the discussion around, I know this is about culture, but fundamentally for the culture, there's leading and managing. And so back again, historically, 50s onwards and probably 80s and 90s, it was about manage the business, manage the people. But you don't. You manage the process of running a business, but you lead people. And that really helps the culture because you lead people and allow them to grow and develop and nurture that culture that's in place, not forever managing every aspect of it. So that is definitely within the context for culture as well.
so how does that link into social value?
Well, that
So, oh, sorry, Dave, you go. No, it's fine.
no,
You
no,
go. I'll go after. Yeah.
hey, ladies first, always come on.
So I'd say what's more recently, and just some of the collective conversations that we've all been having and bringing the social value, it's very much, and Phil touched on it before, being driven much more now through what we call the new generation coming into the businesses. And actually from everything, the culture, the recruitment, the retention, all those things, it's the social value is much more of a priority. Never mind the fact that it's a priority at the other end of the scale in terms of from the leadership team and down and sort of down through the organization. And I think so you've got to then look at, there's always measurements. It's very well having all these things in place, but then how do you measure the successes? What's working, what's not working? And that's where, from our conversations with around the social, bringing that social value with us investors in community is that tool and that resource that can help these organisations track and measure and that social value, which is one area definitely of sort of that the culture driving forwards.
I think that's again when we were having that meeting the other week, it sort of sparked all of this that for too long we've been talking about culture in one kind of box and then social value in another box and having individual meetings, but they've morphed together, they're one and the same. Absolutely, with the new generation now, social impact is very much part of culture because there is a demand from the new generation about what are we doing about it. It didn't even sit on the board agenda originally. Culture was way down there, never mind social value, but they've come right up. So the whole social impact side is a definite way. There's a tracking and measurement of a lot of the activity that people are doing within their organizations now.
And of course, that weaves in with the stakeholders, doesn't it? So investors, supply chain, everybody that's intertwined inextricably with a business. Phil, how does it work with the social value side and the culture piece for those people associated with the business?
Well, if you come back to basic human psychology, we're in a period of huge, and I mean huge change. It seems like every day something changes, and something innovative happens, and we struggle to keep up as humans. Our thought processes don't actually move that quickly. And when we're feeling uncomfortable, we reach out for something that is comfortable. We'd like to think that that comfort is drawn from our colleagues in teams within the businesses. So we're looking for a supportive environment. We're looking to extol our own values. At a time when technology is moving ahead of us at such a pace, it's difficult to keep up. We're looking for some kind of comfort in the surroundings that we create. So the cultural piece and social value being a huge part of that, I think comes back to human nature. So when, for example, if you say this is going to change, your head automatically says, but what's in it for me? Is it going to affect me? Is it going to destroy me? Is it going to promote me? What's in it for me is the first unspoken thing in somebody's head. So there's natural fear of change. And that fear of change, where technology is concerned, we revert to more humanistic tendencies, which is to look after each other. We can do that. It's what it takes to be human as opposed to AI, for example. It's one of the key differentiators. We can look after each other. So social value in terms of community outreach, in terms of supporting, volunteering, gifting, giving money to deserving charities and causes is fundamentally part of our psyche. And the businesses, once they harness that, I think will get tremendous results, notwithstanding the fact that engagement of staff and team members is only part of it. The real return on investment is through marketing, through investment stakeholders, yes, through brand shininess, and obviously the productivity that comes when you associate and present yourself as a socially valuable company within your supply chains, within your customer base, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of reasons why that works. But fundamentally, it comes down to catch the wind of the team, the culture that they wish to work within, and social value is absolutely part of that, if not one of the biggest parts of that as we move forwards.
I'll just add on to that, just a couple of stats as well around, I come from originally from a background of sales and predominantly marketing. And I invested a lot of time in marketing for businesses, but sales and marketing, messaging wise, about 10% influence. And Lynette, I know you're in that side of the business too, but 90% of people are influenced by what they see and hear about a business, what their friends hear and see about the business. So the actions and behaviors of the business, that is, we're back to mindset and behaviors again, that the vast majority of us psychologically are drawn to what we hear because we believe if we see it with our own eyes, we believe if through our noted peers they talk about a business, then that's what really influences me. And the whole social value element is, yeah, it's there. It's so relevant now. Whereas previously there are so many businesses, Sue and I work with in particular with a lot of the family, multi-generational businesses. People have been there 25, 35 years. And well, why can't we just carry on doing what we're doing? Because the world has changed. And as Phil has sort of marked on that, the speed of change, everything, we have to stay relevant. And by staying relevant, it means that we need to look at ourselves and exactly what are we doing with our social impact. The new generation is looking for something different. And there's more of a demand for it. So we have to change. We have the tools and ways of evidencing it all now. And this is now bolted on in the cultural piece. People would often say, well, yeah, it's nice, that cultural thing, but we can't really track and measure it. Well, we can. We can do that now. We have the technology. We didn't used to have all of that. Technology, we can talk to each other around the world, around the UK, doing exactly what we're doing here now. This has all aided how we can track and evidence all the things that all of our teams are doing and developing. And we have the tools to physically and tangibly measure it as well. So it is a completely new age.
I think the social media side of, sorry, so picking up Dave's point, the social media side of life now has left every company, let alone every individual, wide open. People know exactly what you're doing, whether you think they do or not. It will be reported on somewhere in some kind of social media. So your brand is under scrutiny 24/7 by people you don't even know. And I think that's the point, is if you're going to support your brand with social value, that will become widely known as well. So as much as it reports on the negatives about your business, it will also report on the positives. So there's nowhere to hide. We have to embrace the tech. And as Dave said, we now have the ability to track, measure, report with precision, proving what you do, not just saying what you do. And that's a really important point, because saying what you do will ultimately get found out, because social media is relentless in its pursuit of a version of the truth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so my point was really similar to actually what Phil was saying about said then. It was about sort of that visibility of it, and businesses we work with, you know, they're afraid sometimes to communicate out to the externally, because you've got, you know, we talk about the green washing or the green hushing, and it's actually the green hushing they're doing. There's some really good things that come through with the social value and the businesses, and from a cultural point of view, that they could really talk about externally. But
What's green
actually,
hushing, so?
pardon?
What's green hushing?
So green hushing is when they're actually doing good, but they don't want to talk about it because of social media and press, how it could be then perceived in the marketplace. It was
Without,
actually a business we were with not so long ago that talked to us about the differences of greenwashing and green hushing, and it was they called it this green hushing era, that they and it's actually how do they then communicate that to their employees about actually what can they do internally to make sure that that messaging of all the good and the social value that's being done, which is, but then to external. So when we talk about investors in community, you know, here we've got hard evidence and facts. It's tracked. It can't be. So that's where it sits, and it's a lot easier then to use that resource to the external market as well as your internal audience.
so where you don't have evidence, you might be reluctant to talk about it with such confidence, and that's called green hushing. Where you do have the evidence, of course, you can espouse what you do with great confidence,
Yeah.
and get all the benefits of doing so.
So we've obviously talked about social value, but in terms of back to basics, what do you guys actually feel social value is? What is social value? And what are some really good real life examples of businesses that you've come across that have added social value to their communities and the culture that's associated with that as well?
So we go back in time, not too many years ago, probably about 10, 15 years ago, to a story about a train manufacturer in Derby. And they were bidding for a government bid. I think it was across Thames Link. I think it was something like that in London. And they lost the tender by a tiny amount of money to a German company. And then suddenly the stark realization that jobs will be lost in Derby, and that therefore the retailers that supported that company, the coffee shops, the sandwich bars, all the other knock-on things that will be affected by significant loss of jobs in Derby. Why? Because for a tiny amount of money, the company had saved money. So therefore, and the government, of course, spent the money elsewhere. And that raised a huge question mark over, well, hang on a second, a business sitting of that of significance in Derby has a whole knock-on effect to the community in which it sits. It's all about, it's not just about them making profit. It's about the sandwich shop. It's about the suppliers. It's about the transport companies, the taxis, the I don't know, the nightlife, all the things that surround the business that people engage with. Again, spending money in the local economy. So there's an economic value to the social impact of a business. So that's where it all started to stem from in terms of a real story, if you like. It's a false economy just to look at the price of something. You have to now look beyond that into what is the social impact, if you like, of that company in its local areas, local communities, local people. Excuse me. And so that's, to me, the representative of some kind of social value. There are many, many interpretations of social value depending on who you talk to, but essentially it's the outreach to engage with the community from a profit-making business's point of view to say, how can we help? How can we help stitch in supports in whatever form that takes, either through charities, community groups, into the local area. It's now woven into the Social Value Act, of course, and that was brought out some 10, 15 years ago. That dictated that as part of a government contract, you would add so much social value to the local economy, and it was quantified. And therefore, these actions were then taken as to say, well, what will you do to add value as part of your delivery of your contract? And that was defined by the local government and national government when they awarded contracts. So then how does that happen? It basically means that the businesses who are supplying need to go and make some kind of statement. We're going to help refurbish a local premises. We're going to put a kitchen in a charity. We're going to volunteer to help do this. We're going to gift materials, all sorts of different ways of giving. And they had to prove that back to the main tenderer, which of course was UK Gov at the time. So this industry then sprung up a wonderful measurement system, or rather many measurement systems talking about social value. And social value was then given proxy amounts. So social value for example, assisting in the reduction of crime had a certain monetary amount given to it, basically constructed, and that amount, like a proxy amount, was then totaled to give a total amount of social value. It's a bit of a myth, really. However, it's a mechanism for doing it. So social value is the impact around you. It's measured by proxy values in social value portals, for example, to give an indicator of the relative social value you're delivering. But ultimately, I think it's social value is about the conscience of the business. It's about how people feel. I speak to several social value managers and said social value is the feeling. It's the feeling you get when you help somebody else. That's social value. And I thought that was an interesting way of interpreting it. I've talked enough. Let's pass on to your Dave.
I feel like I just need to get my coat. I mean, that's pretty much, you don't need us.
Yeah, it is.
I will just add a point, yeah, because it's that, just picking up on the last point, the feeling, it's hard evidence that sort of that act of kindness, the community, it is a tangible in the body. It actually, the chemical, the whole dopamine effect, everything through an act of kindness. And it's not a huge sum, but small acts of kindness actually affect the body. You have a natural high. And, that's something surely we'd all believe that everyone should want to do, but it's a real thing. But, we see it sort of every day, people saying, just go up and talk to somebody, or just one act of kindness every day. If you can't get to the gym, go and do that. It's the next best thing.
Back to the question for you, Lynette, on the, sort of the businesses, and probably I can give you, I'm going to say a more general rather than specific. And you talked about, sort of when businesses are evidencing that social value. I would say the biggest shift that I've seen, and it's a more general one, is the businesses are starting to realise it's not now just a tick box exercise on a tender form or something. What it actually is, it's got to be lived and breathed by the people of the organisation and the business that they are working for. And that then comes back to what we talked about in sort of the beliefs and the values and the behaviours and that feeling, that culture. And so I would say the biggest sort of, that reward, what we start to see now, is when you've actually got a business talking more openly about social value, and it's not now just a tick box on a form.
Yeah.
So we work with a large construction firm, and recently the chief executive of the whole group was made to comment that he believed his social value managers were his secret weapon in winning new business. And that says a lot, because social value being a secret weapon, what's that all about? It's about the return on investment. That's what it's about. It's about saying, yes, you can give, and you automatically, your brain will think that's a cost center. But actually, there is a return on investment, and it can be many, many times. It's in new customers, it's in marketing, it's in brand awareness, it's in basically productivity and profitability. Let's use that word, shall we? Profitability of a company can be affected by embracing social value. And
There's
get
an
that
acronym around that, Phil.
Sorry?
There's an acronym around it, which is we're applying it in a lot of things now, just ROTS. So return on time spent. And that naturally equates back to those social value managers. It's looking at all the people in the business and where they're actually spending their time. So there's return on investment, but return on time spent. Where are we actually spending that time to get the greatest value back? So that really applies with it. Yeah.
So with investors in community, pulling it all together and back to the platform and the movement that we have. How does IIC help in terms of culture audits, helping social value managers create culture plans and the measuring and reporting with the tangible impact?
Who's going first?
It's how does it start? It's beginning to end. It's introduced. It's one of the first things that is now introduced in all the culture work that we probably are now delivering. It's become the tool at the very beginning to introduce. It's almost like a good news story from the very beginning. Look, we're now part of Investors in Community. This is the start of the journey and all the cultural work that we're going to be doing. It's a tracking and measuring tool right from the very beginning. So it gets people excited, gets people interested in something tangible that they can contribute to from the beginning. So it's the start of the story when we're going through that cultural transition. We've got a way of tracking it from the very beginning, and everyone has a feeling that they can get involved. It's back to that word feeling again. They have a feeling. It's a warm, fuzzy feeling that I can be part of something from the very beginning and track and evidence everything that's going on in a business and what I'm doing as well. So it's there right at the beginning and all the way through.
And I'll probably just add on to what Dave said there in terms of he talks about everyone getting involved. And I think that's the thing with, through Investors in Community, it's not just the company, it's the people within the business, within the organisation who can be involved, and they can track and measure their own input and what they're doing as well as what the business is doing. So it's then it's almost like that equation of bringing what the business and the people, and that equals that sort of that purpose and that social value.
And of course, they can choose what they want to do, can't they? That's one of the
what it is. We love it. In recent weeks, as one of the companies said, "Oh, we've had one of the charities. We've had our first meeting. The charity came in. And we invited the charity into the office, and we sat down together about how we're going to work together." So again, it's that whole community piece, that it's the business identifying the different charities and community groups, inviting them into their workplace, and automatically you've got a team ethos working. You've got different organizations coming together collectively. Now that's a new habit that's started to be formed as well through this.
So Investors in Community as a platform, I'll be clear, is a business tool. That's how it started out. We're going to deliver proper, precise measurement to the question of social value in order that the business can expand its marketing reach, attract new customers, etc., and get a return on the investment. It's actually a business measurement tool, a little bit like Xero is to accounts. So we can measure, we can track, and we can report on behalf of the business. However, as Dave and Sue have just rightly said, this is all about the flip side of that coin, which is engagement of your staff. Engage your staff in a fair platform, and they will come forward and give you that extra commitment, the extra cultural involvement that you're looking for, that will actually naturally extend into the workplace anyway. But giving them choice, giving them the rewards. We have this reward mechanism called community credits, and community credits is our trademarked measurement of reward for any act of giving. So individuals or team members will earn community credits. A whole piece can be set up around that to reward, acknowledge, and recognize huge motivational factors, the individuals themselves who get involved. But this is all backed up by the whole measurement aspect for a business. So driven by the business, adopted by the business, delivered by the people.
Yeah, I like that. That's
I'd say that's a good end.
I'm just writing things down now. This is like a workshop session.
Social value. I'm like, oh,
there's other things come out that I can feel another article coming on, and that when you talk about what was social value, then immediately it's drawn me back to social value as a gym of the mind. It's a workout of the mind, really, because there's so much it does for each and every individual. But it also, back to the cultural aspect of it, how do you get everybody engaged and involved? Everybody can be involved with that. It's not limited
Yeah.
to, with respect to people at different levels of knowledge and experience. Every single person has a route in and an opportunity to be part of that and helping out with different skill sets. It's not always about money. It's not about skill time. It's just different things that people have and can give and support with. So it levels out everybody in the organization that can be involved. And again, naturally, relating back to the cultural aspect of things, it levels out everything. Every single person is able to contribute and be part of it. Therefore, naturally, the whole cultural piece starts to really develop in the business.
I was talking to a lady who was she worked for a large insurance company who will remain nameless. She said, it's volunteering day tomorrow. I'm going off sick. And I said, why would you do that? She said, well, we haven't really volunteering. It's called voluntold because the company has adopted a single charity and we're told to go and our job tomorrow, volunteering wise, is to go and do the gardening and give the support to the care home. And she had very long, very painted nails. She said, I'm not gardening with my nails, she said. So I'm going off sick. And I thought, what a shame, because our platform, because it ties the individual's profiles back to the business profile, means the individual can do anything. And the statistics will automatically be reported anyway. So she could have gone off and done something inside the care home, for example, loneliness support, for example, and other things besides. She could go and do some work for an entirely different charity because she's more interested in animals than in gardening. So she could have made a choice. And it's all about choice for people when they volunteer. It means that all your team members can also choose something entirely different at no cost to the business. No cost. They can all make their choices and all the metrics flow back on the platform to the single business report. And we think that's critical because people's choice massively affects their engagement and their enthusiasm. So it's things like that which come to mind when we talk about how people espouse their values and how they get involved and how we get the culture of involvement. We have removed as many barriers as possible on the platform to allow people to properly get involved in a point of choice.
And you talk about no cost again there, no cost to them, but greater value coming back in. The value
Massively.
from the individual, the value from the community group that they're supporting, the
Yes.
value overall back to that, how we hear about those things and think about that business generally, not just that employee anymore. We
Yeah.
think back to, well, that individual works for that company. So how I feel about that company, enabling that to happen at no cost.
Yeah.
That's that's circular in itself. With all of that comes back.
Actually, sort of the slight flip side to that, taking it back to culture in the organisation, and we talked about behaviours and that belief and that feeling. It's also it's giving that everyone that opportunity, but if it also will help if there's certain people we all know in an organisation who actually, for whatever reason, aren't that culture within that business, and it also with helps in terms of that just mindset of gives those options, and it's not just sort of just down one track. There's a whole plethora of sort of other things that they can get involved with, but if they choose not to get involved with, then there is that brings it back to the culture and those peers and the other people around them, where it can make it either draining or not.
So to wrap up, if there's a business leader or a charity leader or someone that's working within a business that they think this sounds amazing, but they're perhaps thinking, I'm not sure about the time investment, financial investment, etc. What would you say to them if you could speak to them directly, Phil?
Well, first of all, investment wise, for every individual, it's free. Log on to our platform, investorsincommunity.org, click the register your personal details. You have a free forever account. Doesn't matter who you work for, it's yours. That's the important thing about individuals. Second one is we call them charities. We call them good causes, actually, because it's not just charities, it's community groups, it's any not-for-profit, it's any school, It's anybody that serves the society that doesn't make a profit out of it to be distributed. So that's called a good cause. It impacts the community positively. And guess what? They're free as well. So they can go on and create a profile, and then they can launch lots of little projects in our marketplace, as many as you like, always for free. So there's no cost implication there. There's a tiny amount of time required to set it up. And for businesses, let's have a look. So a business of any size can engage with our platform. There's complexities ranging from very, very simple to very sophisticated in terms of how you structure your profile. But call us and we'll talk you through. There is a nominal subscription level for that, or rather membership level, we'll call it, because when they become members of our platform, we support them. We give them ideas. We match them with charitable opportunities and good cause opportunities. And for that, they do pay a nominal amount to become members of that situation. But that's a tiny amount compared to what they'll get back, the time saved, the engagement they'll have, and all the other return on investment things I was talking about. So my advice to any business leader of any size company is take a step towards this, find out more, make your decision, and start to embrace the cultural shift that's going to carry you across the next few years of blistering pace change that's affecting every single company out there right now. Find as many things as possible to give you that best possible chance of success. Social value through investors in community is one of those.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. Thanks, Lynette.